Hey folks, I don't know if anyone can hear me. Am I live yet? Am I here? Yes. Hello. I've managed to find the best lighting for my face in the entire West End. Oh, hello. Nice to see you all. Really is lovely, and it's a gorgeous evening. I was just doing another tour around the Covent Garden area, and we saw some Harry Potter wands around there. There's The Secrets of Grindelwald. The film has just come out, and in Covent Garden they also have lots of displays of shows and films that are on. And now I have been into Leicester Square and I couldn't see any wands, so we'll have to see what we can find. We're going to have a wander around Leicester Square and Soho. At the moment, we're on the end of St Martin's Lane and Charing Cross Road. If you do know the West End, I'm going to turn us around in a moment and you'll be able to see Trafalgar Square and St Martin in the Fields Church. If you've never met me, let's hold this back a bit so it's a little bit more appealing, possibly. I'm Gerard. I've been an actor for about 25 years and I have been a tour guide about 20 years, and I'm really enjoying doing these shows on Beams. I hope you will enjoy it. We're at 8:30 London time, so 20:30. And some of the shows have started. Some start quite late. The shorter plays start at 8:30, 8:45. Same kind of deal as on Broadway. But when I was earlier in the West End, it was 7:15 when I started. And everyone was queuing up. And they were all quite selfish, using their phones and using the network. And I don't think that'll be an issue now. I think hopefully they turn their phones off. I always call people selfish, but they're not. Here we go. So there's St Martin in the Fields Church, and right in the centre of the screen is Nelson's Column, just behind those lamps. It's quite a cool thing to see, with the lights just going down in London. We come to the middle of the summer, it won't be getting dark until about 9:30 at night. But it's now 8:30 and the sun has just disappeared, but it still gives a nice glow to the sky. It's been uncommonly warm the last few days in London. 2 weeks ago we had a real dip in temperature, so it was in the minus centigrade. But today we've had about 20 degrees, which is wonderful. And at the moment it's about 12, 13, which is great. I don't have to wear too many layers. So, let's show you up St Martin's Lane. St Martin's Lane has a few theatres on it. One right in front of us in the centre of the screen is the Colosseum, which opened in 1904. It's actually the biggest theatre in the West End, the largest stage, the largest auditorium. Drury Lane has the largest plot of land. Right at the top of it, you might be able to see the Colosseum globe that's turning. Now, originally that did turn in 1904, and then the council thought it's moving advertising, so they stopped them from doing it. But they've recently, in the last 10 years or so, allowed them to put it back again. But it's about to open My Fair Lady, which is a Lincoln Center production, which I was lucky enough to see 3 years ago on a visit to New York. Pre-pandemic, when I had an income, I had money. Oh, it was great. It's been a tricky couple of years for all of us, not just financially. But that Lincoln Center production is coming here, and I think the sound has just got slightly better. Am I right? You can show a few hearts. Yeah. You know what? It was tucked into my jacket. So this is the London Colosseum. Probably the most interesting fact about this place is that it used to have a removable royal box, and royalty could get on. Queen Victoria it was designed for, and she passed away before she could use it. So then her son used it, and he got on at the palace, horse and carriage, and the carriage was actually a royal box, and it went up the side of the theatre and clamped on, and then they could just open the curtains and they could watch the show. Now that is the definition of style, to have your own royal box. You could just get in at your house. But My Fair Lady, this Lincoln Center production is interesting in a few ways. When I saw it originally, it had a half English, half American cast, or half British, half American. So it's interesting that some of the pronunciations of the words were, shall we say, watching it from a Londoner's point of view, were a bit weird. They said Ascot. They go to Ascot, and they called it Ascot. I've looked into that, and it's possible that that's what people said. We have this idea of received pronunciation, RP, in the English language, and that all came from royalty. Doesn't mean they're necessarily speaking in the right way, but sometimes they say things and they clip words. So they said Ascot. Now we've got the Duke of York's Theatre here. I do want to go up a couple of side roads, if you're all right with that. Now, it may seem to you folks that it's really quiet in the West End. The shows, this road have opened. This road in particular, St. Martin's Lane, behind where we are now, right at the end of the road, you used to be able to turn right into Trafalgar Square and just leave the West End. But they've banned that. They've put a no right turn. So now you have to turn left at the end of this road behind us and go straight back into Covent Garden. So it becomes a bit of a circular avenue. So most cars know that, or if they have sat navs, it sends them somewhere else. So St. Martin's Lane has ended up being almost a pedestrianised street. Duke of York's Theatre, showing the ocean at the end of the lane, which came originally from the National Theatre. Neil Gaiman, great writer, created this. Neon is the thing in the West End at the moment. For many years it was painted billboards. So electricity has really taken over even at the front of the theatres. They even used to paint backdrops at Drury Lane. Pablo Picasso, his early life as a teenager, came to London and painted backdrops at Drury Lane, and now they're all digitally printed. The idea of painting something seems a bit strange now. This is quite a new place, the Theatre Cafe. The reason it might look a bit too bright is because they have hundreds of LED bulbs. They're advertising Frozen the musical. So a lot of the shows will pay these people to advertise their shows. And they have a cabaret bar as well. Somebody singing at the back. And often you get people that are in musicals that will turn up here and do a little set of an evening at 11 o'clock. We'll get slightly brighter as we go up. So we're going up St. Martin's Lane, then it becomes Upper St. Martin's Lane. If we continued on all the way past the large building in front, we would curve round to the junction of Tottenham Court Road and Oxford Street. And then if we continued on, we just drove on that way, or walked or ran or cycled, we'd eventually end up in Camden. So we're in the West End, but we're in a sort of southeast section. The Noel Coward Theatre. Noel Coward is a fantastic English comedian, wit, raconteur, musical writer, and playwright. Private Lives, who's one of his most famous, and Blithe Spirit, who's now showing a great show that's come from Broadway. One of the original shows in the West End. Most West End shows they're adaptations. So we've got Pretty Woman, we've got Back to the Future. So if they're not based on movies, they're based on maybe historical tales. One of the great musicals in town at the moment is called Six. It's at the Vaudeville Theatre, and it's based on the Six Wives of Henry VIII, telling it more from their point of view. But Dear Evan Hansen is an original story. Let's go down St. Martin's Court and we'll cut straight into Leicester Square. By the way, this is the Shaftesbury Victorian pub. Most Victorian pubs have frosted glass. Lovely to go in for a drink, but I think we're allowed to film in there. And it would be quite rude anyway, wouldn't it? We just turned up for a drink and said, guys, just hang out for a bit. Quite jealous of those two guys, but I'd much rather be with you. It's very interesting. At 7:15, it becomes a second rush hour. So at 5:30, there's a rush hour in the West End when everyone's trying to get home. And then at 7:15, everyone is driven into the West End because it's post-congestion charge. So you don't have to pay the £15 to drive into London, and people trying to drive in last minute to get a parking space before the show, driving in the whole family, especially in the last few months when we've had the pandemic. People feel maybe in general a bit safer driving in. This is Jay Shiki. Now during the pandemic they closed down completely, as most places did, and this was the little outside seating area, but they have bought the land now and they put a static outside seating area. And Madonna played in this theatre here, the Wyndhams, many years ago. So there are two theatres here. On the right hand side, we saw the Noel Coward. The Wyndhams is on the left, and there's a walkway between the two. It's got advertising for Hamilton and Mary Poppins. She was playing at the Wyndhams on the left. She didn't want to be mobbed at the end. So instead of going out the stage door, which is just there in the center of the screen, she walked up along that little corridor and then out the front of the Duke of York's. And all these people waiting for their autographs, and just maybe for the chance to meet Madonna. It spent upwards of £60–70 for a ticket, and she's popped out the front door. I don't know about that. It can happen the other way round. Many years ago, mid-2000s, there was a show called Equus in the West End, and it had Richard Griffiths. If you know, he plays Dudley Dursley's father in Harry Potter, and it had Daniel Radcliffe. And obviously, there would be hundreds outside for young Daniel, and he was getting mobbed each night, and the rest of the cast couldn't get out stage door. They might want to get home. And most of them would try and get out the front. But one day, people, they got this idea that Daniel Radcliffe was going to be around the front of the building, so they decided to queue around the front as well. And Richard Griffiths, who's quite a large man, they tried to get him out one of the disabled toilets, the window of it, and he got stuck. The late, great Richard Griffiths. Universal Studios have a London section, which is now kind of given over to Harry Potter, but their design is based on the Wyndhams Theatre, the theatre that they have there, showing The Life of Pi, which won many Olivier Awards. Best Actor were the six actors, it's the men and women who played the tiger in The Life of Pi, the equivalent of the Tonys. Okay, the Hippodrome Casino, which was a theatre originally, the Hippodrome, was bought by a man called Peter Stringfellow. He turned it into a burlesque bar. Now it's a casino. I'm going to go into the centre of Leicester Square. Hopefully the signal won't die. Can you guys still hear? Wonderful. Wonderful. It's going to get busy now. All these people trying to use their bandwidth. Trying to send their messages saying, yeah, I'm in Leicester Square. Where exactly? Well, we're just in Leicester Square. It's a big place. So this is home to most of the movie premieres in London. And it wasn't for a while. It was a period of about 10 years where they went elsewhere, not just in London, in the country. And now they've returned. Right in the centre of the screen right now is the Empire Casino and Cinema, which was a theatre. It was closed down in the 1930s because it had a very dark third balcony, the gallery at the top, and nefarious activities went on there. I did a film called V for Vendetta, starring Natalie Portman and Hugo Weaving. Only had a couple of lines in it, but my mother and I were very lucky enough to be invited to the premiere. I got 2 tickets to the premiere. My girlfriend at the time, I invited my mum, and luckily she was busy anyway, so that was good. It saved that argument. Mum's come first, I think. You may hear buskers, street entertainers. Now theatres, back in the old days, you normally entered through any available doors. So all the exits, the fire exits, people would turn up. Okay, let's have a little look at this. Sweet Caroline. It's become a bit of an English song in sporting events, singing Sweet Caroline. I much prefer Neil Diamond's version. And here we have the Odeon Cinema, which is home to most of the premieres in the West End, showing The Secrets of Dumbledore. You need to appreciate how many people are in town. When I came into town in May of 2020, just to pick up some stuff from a workplace nearby, and I came in here and I walked into Covent Garden and I thought, I hope I won't get a fine or anything. I didn't. I just said, oh, I'm picking something up from around the corner, I'm a bit lost. I thought, I'll never get the chance to walk in the centre of London completely empty. In the West End, there are a few people living here, but you know, we were in lockdown, so you were allowed to go out for a bit of exercise and so on. But I did it, and I could hear my voice echoing against these buildings. This was originally the Earl of Leicester, Mr. Sidney. This was his land. Quite a few of these here.
Yeah, I think apparently machine learning also apparently in the real world, realistically machine learning.
Harry Potter just to the left is a statue, a fountain dedicated to some guy called William Shakespeare. You may have heard of him. Wrote a couple of plays, had a beard. So Theatreland really started in Covent Garden, about a kilometre, about 2/3 of a mile from here. That all happened in the 1660s. Theatreland before that was in the South Bank, where the Globe is now, where the Tate Modern is, the London Eye. The south side of the river was outside the jurisdiction of the main authorities, who were the Puritans. And the Puritans hated everything, but they really detested theatre. And so this area was where rich people lived, but there was no theatre here, certainly. Mary Poppins. They're well lit, aren't they? And they look like they're bronze, but they're powdered aluminium and they're painted, so they're hollow inside. And this little seating area here has remained pretty much unchanged for a couple of 100 years. The Odeon Cinema used to be a theatre called the Alhambra. So we had two, the Empire, the Alhambra, and just on the end of it, we had the Hippodrome as well. So many lost theatres of London. And most of them closed because they were simply too big. In the 1800s, there became a fashion for Strindberg, for Ibsen, for small, intimate dramas rather than variety or musicals. And then cinema took over. 1930s and 40s, most of these buildings got turned into Cinerama cinemas, which would be 3 projectors side by side. The old version of what we now call widescreen. But some of them still have the same front. People always scribble things on billboards in London. So that's got free Julian Assange. That wasn't here the last time I was here. And in front of us, we've got the M&M store, which was called the Swiss House. This area, Leicester Square, is also called Swiss Court. But M&M World, M&M's have a bit of money, so they bought the entire building. Just upstairs, there's a bar, restaurant, and as the young people call it, a discotheque or a nightclub. The big neon strobe. But this represents the 26 cantons or regions of Switzerland. And on the hour, every hour, these bells ring. But this was originally on the building, attached to the building on the right. In 1991, Prime Minister of Switzerland, really to say, we're friends with you in the UK, said, can we rename Leicester Square Swiss Court? So if you ever come to London and somebody says, let's meet in Swiss Court, you're coming into the centre of Leicester Square. So these are the 26 flags of the cantons, the regions of Switzerland. And some beautiful architecture in the background. Now we're only talking Wednesday, and people are out and about. We've got the middle of our Easter break for most of the schools and colleges. So they had a week off pre-Easter, and I hope you all had a lovely one. Lovely break. I hope most of you got time off. I found out the other day that Easter eggs, the chocolate eggs, are not a worldwide thing. I thought they were. I just assumed they came from America to the UK. But they seem to be really popular. And the Lego store, everyone loves Lego. There's always a queue there. And even at nearly 9 o'clock at night, still queuing to get in. Lego, extremely expensive, but always keeps its value, like a vintage car. I've bought Lego for family members over the years, and it has not gone down in value. There's Mickey. That's our little tribute to Disney World. It's just him, really. Let's pop up to Chinatown.
I don't know where the tube station is.
Won't spend too long up here. There's a few more things I want to show you. This is Wardour Street, home to most of the media agencies and film companies in London on Wardour Street. Only the other day I was doing a tour and I saw Jack Black just walking down this road. Must have had some meeting here. So we're in the West End, but Chinatown used to be in the East End of London. And then in 1940 and 1941, Limehouse, where they were based in the East End, was quite heavily bombed. And they looked for a nice cheap area to come. And believe it or not, Soho and Leicester Square seemed to be the cheapest area in London at the time. So they set up shop here. This is our Chinatown, biggest in Europe. The lights are pinging. Love it. There's just too much going on that screen. It's not like being in a field. So you don't have an Easter break. That's interesting. Very strange. I noticed another thing in the US. When I watch sitcoms, I watch this TV show. It's one of my favorites, Blackish. I find it so funny. And they on Christmas Day they went to the cinema. They went to a movie. So that's apparently a big thing. Separation of church and state. I suppose every country does it slightly differently. In the UK at Christmas, we have this thing called the 12 Days of Christmas. And I believe it happens in a few places in the world. But Christmas Day was traditionally the first day of the Christmas celebrations. And then it ended on the night of the 5th of January, 12th night, they called it. Which is why Shakespeare wrote that play, 12th Night. The play has nothing to do with 12th Night. Oh, spring break. In 1601 asked Shakespeare to write a play specifically for the last night of the Christmas celebrations at the court. He said, well, I'll write you one, but you haven't given me enough time. So I believe he just already had a play ready and just changed the title to 12th Night, because if you look at the play, it can be set any time of year, never mentions Christmas. This is the Prince of Wales Theatre. It's currently showing one of the biggest shows in town. You can rarely get a ticket for it, Book of Mormon. Now, a lot of the buildings are from the 1800s, but this is Art Deco. So this frontage is from the 1930s. Quite a few royal theatres in the West End. Most of them were originally called Theatre Royals, and then after royal patronage ended, they said, let's just name them after royalty. Hopefully they thought they could win favour with royals. So there's a Duke of York's, not named after the present Duke of York. We've got the Prince of Wales. We've got the Theatre Royal Drury Lane, Theatre Royal Nottingham, the Theatre Royal Bath, the Theatre Royal Brighton. So for many years, you either had to have a royal license or you just wanted to be nice to the royals. The Prince Edward, Her Majesties, His Majesties in Aberdeen. This is the Comedy Pub, so they have an amazing karaoke night. They're one of the few pubs in London that have late licenses, so they have one until 4 o'clock in the morning at the weekend. It's also most of them, of course, being boxing matches. They make a fortune. This is the Tom Cribb pub. And he had his first fight in 1809. And it lasted 76 rounds. And they nicknamed him the Black Diamond. He used to work in the 60s as a royalty. Their show started tonight. So it's nice and quiet around here. Got Jodie Comer, if you know the TV show Killing Eve. Every now and then the signal will go, depending on where we are. I do apologise for that. I think we've got it back now. Harold Pinter is possibly up there with my favourite writers, with Arthur Miller, Tennessee Williams. I love Shakespeare, of course, but I think Pinter might be my favourite. The first play I ever did, coming out of theatre school, was a play called The Dumb Waiter. Just a 45-minute Harold Pinter show. I was in my 20s. I didn't really know, I'll be honest with you, what the play was about, but I made my own decisions. I thought, if I've got an idea what I'm talking about, then the audience will as well. The director says, you make up how you feel about it. I can't tell you. Pinter leaves loads of pauses, and he asks the actors to make their own minds up. Play Othello is quite like that. Iago, at the end of the play, says that he cannot say why he has done what he has done, why he has been so awful to Othello. I've seen many different productions. So you can either play Iago, which I have in a pub theatre. You can play him fully down the line, racist, nasty piece of work, who hates Othello because of the colour of his skin. You can play it that you're in love with his wife. You can also play it as if you're just jealous of his position. But because he says at the end, I cannot say why I've done what I have done, it's up to you to play it however you want. And you can play it differently every night. I love the Orson Welles version of Othello. Orson Welles, what he was doing in his early 20s, unbelievable. Try and listen to his old radio stuff. That War of the Worlds, it still stands up today. His radio version of that just took his time telling that story. Absolute genius. This is the old Carlton Theatre. It's now a cinema. It's just about to show Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness, with Benedict Cumberbatch. But this was a theatre, and they asked for listed status. Now, we've got this thing called the National Heritage, or the English Heritage List of Protected Buildings. And this building, even though it is beautiful, from the 1920s, 1925, I believe, it opened as a playhouse and a cinema at the same time. They were denied so many other buildings and said, we want protected status. And they said to this one, you can't have it. So another company bought the dressing rooms and the physical acting stage at the back and turned it into restaurants and apartments. If we could only protect every building, it would be perfect. But I suppose there wouldn't be any juxtaposition, would there? I like us wandering around and we see new buildings that mix in with the old. That's what makes a great city, that it never sleeps, I suppose. The construction people never sleep anyway. This is nice down here. We're on Haymarket, which, as the name suggests, was a hay market. It sold farming goods in the 1700s. Right in front of us is Her Majesty's Theatre. which is showing Phantom of the Opera. Great recessed lighting, which looks really great on the screen. But there has been a theatre on the site since 1705, but they didn't have a royal license. A man called John Vanbrugh, who was an architect, he designed Blenheim Palace, and he was also a playwright. He wrote a very famous comedy called The Relapse, or The Relapse, as they would have said. And they would put on ballettas, plays with music. So if you didn't have a royal license, you could still put on a play, but you would have to add an underscore to it. Make it like a melodrama, like the first movies, the silent movies, which had live orchestras playing with them. This building itself is from 1797. It's quite heavily bombed during the Blitz. There was a fire here as well. So in 1897, it reopened as Her Majesty's. But because it's been here so long, it's taken the name of every major monarch. So it's been known as His Majesty's, Her Majesty's, His Majesty's, Her Majesty's. It's changed names. Now try and give anyone directions in London with using just the names of the theatres. Just showing you the rickshaw there. I think they charge about £5, whatever the journey in the West End. But they will take you, some of them will take you to the airports. It was in the papers a few years back. Somebody paid one to take them to Gatwick Airport. It took them about 7 hours to cycle there. Phantom of the Opera is on here. Now, if you gave somebody directions, you would have to say to them, go up to Phantom of the Opera, turn left, turn right, go past Les Miserables. But if you said, if you go to Her Majesty's and walk up to the Apollo and turn left at the Lyric, nobody would know what you meant. Now it's the shows that sell. When I often ask people where they've been, they've mentioned the name of the show as if it's the name of the theatre. They say, we went to Phantom of the Opera rather than we went to Her Majesty's Theatre. That's just the way these buildings work now. Phantom of the Opera has been on here since 1986. So it might as well be called the Phantom of the Opera. Apologies for the wind. The wind of the microphone. This is the Theatre Royal Haymarket. So in 1660, we had had a period of 18 years of Puritan rule. And they had closed down all the theatres. They hated everything, but mainly theatre. And then Charles II decided to reopen them. He gave these two men licenses for two playhouses. So for many years in London, there were only two buildings allowed to put on what we would now call straight drama and comedy. But they used to call it legitimate theatre. Any building like this that wanted to get a license would have to apply for one. And if they didn't receive a royal license to call themselves a theatre royal, they would add music to plays to get round the rules. It was a kind of loophole. If a play had 5 pieces of music, they could get around the rules. This building was given the 3rd license. At the moment, it's showing one of the great sitcoms of all time, Only Fools and Horses, and it's the stage version of that, which ran from the 80s to the 2000s. If you've never seen it, Only Fools and Horses, do check it out. It's one of the most British London sitcoms you will ever see, and it still holds up today. About 2 market traders and their granddad, them just trying to make a living. And they keep saying the phrase, this time next year we'll be millionaires. And they never are. They make just enough to get by. They always say, as long as I can make a penny more than I can spend, I'll be happy. And that's what's on there at the moment. I did a show here about 8 years ago, and it was Fatal Attraction, a stage show, not the musical, but based on the film, written by James Dearden, who wrote the original screenplay. And it is beautiful. They were given the 3rd royal license in 1821. because a man called Samuel Foote, who was the owner, was invited horse riding with the then Duke of York, and he fell off his horse, and the Duke of York gave him a license to apologise. He said, "You can have the third license for a theatre." And Samuel Foote actually broke his leg and was given a license. So maybe it's where the idea of break a leg comes from. Did I boil a bunny? Well, there were 2 real rabbits in the show. I'm not going to be bitter about this, David, but they had their own dressing room. Their insurance was more than I got paid for a weekly wage, and I had to share with 6 other guys. I'm not being bitter. I didn't go up for the role of the bunny, so I couldn't be jealous about that. But it was a great show. We ran for 8 months. One of the leads was Kristen Davis, who plays Charlotte in Sex and the City, so that was quite cool. I used to dine out on that story for quite a long time. Rabbits are divas. They are indeed. But you take the work where you can. It's got no dressing room 13. 13 is considered an unlucky number. Most of these buildings don't have a row I or a row O. Because in the dark, when people are trying to find their seats, you know, if people turn up late, they always have a late comer's point. If they point them to row I, in the dark, J can look like I. You can often get people getting mixed up with their seats. So they normally cut out the row I, and row O can also resemble in the dark Q. So they keep a row Q and a row J, and they cut I and O. But it's lovely, this. We're on Charles II Street, coincidentally. And this portico, this main front, was designed by a man called John Nash, who designed Buckingham Palace and most of Regent Street. Oh, thank you so much, Katharina. Look, some of you may not have even seen what I look like. This is what I look like. I know. I'm human. Oh, thank you very much. Look at the hearts. Look at all the love for little Gerard. I really enjoyed your company. I don't know why and how it's gone so quick. It's always interesting walking around and seeing so many people, trying to avoid them and also looking at the screen as well. And the interesting thing about Beams at the moment is the chat. By the way, sorry, you can really see some of me. The chat has now gone to the other side of the screen, so it's all back to the front for me, and I hope I did okay. Let's see, what have we missed? Have I missed anything? Oh, you guys. Fabulous. Oh, Poor Snout. So I love it when people have interesting names like Poor Snout. I think, how do I say that in a serious way? If we were doing a serious tour, and we will be very soon, I'm going to take us to the Ukrainian embassy, and we're going to have a talk about the Ukrainian stars of stage and screen. It's a lovely area of Holland Park. I might not be able to say names like Nandy Nix or Poor Snout, because I might laugh a bit. So, Cats D 1973. I won't be saying that at the serious tour. Are there famous art galleries near this square? So there are, and maybe for the last moment or two, we'll walk down into Trafalgar Square. How about that? And we'll see. First of all, we are going to pass, if we've got the time, the Canadian High Commission, Canadian Embassy. If there's anyone from Canada here, welcome. You're so very welcome. You're always welcome. But it's just around this corner. So if any of you Canadians ever get stuck here and you think, I've had enough of London, I want to go home, you would come to the High Commission, or consulate, or embassy. And then we'll just quickly go into Trafalgar Square because the National Gallery is there. Most of the galleries and large museums are free in London, which is one of the great things that they've done over the years. most of that was done under a Conservative government. So whatever people say, one way or the other, David Cameron did make art galleries and museums free. I won't say anything else though. It's not political. Okay. Here's a delivery driver. We'll stop up here. So this is Trafalgar Square in front. We saw Hamlet, fabulous National Gallery. Oh my goodness, such memories. I do love it. So we've got the Canadian flags right in the center of the screen. You might be able to see them now. On the left-hand side, it's not St. Paul's Cathedral. It does look like it. Yay! Yay to Canada! Gotta love the Canadians. Somebody told me the other day that they had a theory about the relationship between Canada and America. And they said, Canada is Emilio Estevez and America is Charlie Sheen. So Emilio, a bit quiet, just gets on with it. Not really, people aren't massively interested in what he does, but people like him all the same. Charlie Sheen, loud, crazy, and you always want to know what he's up to. I didn't comment on it because I'm not American or Canadian, but I took a metaphor and I thought it was quite a good one. Have there been any protests recently in Trafalgar Square? No, not in the last few weeks. There were quite a few during the pandemic. The restrictions have seemed to have gone now in most places. So people are feeling, if they're feeling hard done by with masks and lockdowns and things, well, at the moment they haven't got anything to complain about. But obviously, Ukraine and so on, everything starts up again with something else, doesn't it? 4 or 5 years ago, I remember thinking, will we ever not hear about Brexit again? And then COVID started. This is the National Gallery. You may hear music. And this is what, because you get a lot of the young guys doing skateboarding, breakdancing here. Right in front of us used to be an area you could drive through where all the night buses were, but they pedestrianised this bit. And that's the National Gallery. Maybe we'll get in there at some point. Okay, let's turn us back to what? I'll let you be, folks. Lovely people. Some lovely music on behind. Great to see you. Thanks for any payments, any donations. Great for all your comments. Great for all your comments. Thanks for all your great comments. Make a sentence out of those words, if you will. Hilarious. Good night, beautiful people. I will see you very, very soon. And look after yourselves. Look after each other. May your God go with you. Lots of love.